So I'm gonna try and be very, very quiet. Wonder why parts of the scar have like pain whenever I touch them. Some don't. Anyway. I can't sleep. PTSD stuff as usual. Worrying about Rowan and Rohan. My brain deciding to go down a trip of other things to try and avoid thinking about that as a coping mechanism, only to end up back down trauma lane. By trauma lane, I'm not talking about a street. I'm trying to say avoid some trauma, end up in more trauma. In a completely different way. Oh yeah, I've had so much hair break and get really short in the past couple days. Some of this isn't, it's just falling out. But a bunch of it is like, it wouldn't even reach my hair tie. I have considered whether or not I should just cut my losses and cut my hair at this point so that it doesn't look like it's just really badly layered and instead looks like it's normal layered. If I leave enough hair, I should still be able to tie up most of it, but only just. Won't be any more buns or braids for a while, but you know, that kind of also means that I can leave my hair down more often. It won't look very nice on the ends though, because whenever I do it that way, I don't really care much about that. It is functional, and function is what I care about. Because, you know, I've got this hair just kind of sticking out. And if it's been layered, that would make a lot more sense. So the other day, yesterday, I think last night I was actually hungry. And that usually means my thyroid has gone high. Well, it could mean, if it's just a little bit, that it's gone low. But my face isn't swollen anymore. It was a couple days ago, though. So, they weren't able to get a BP on me at the doctor's office today, so it's a very good thing that I have a watch that reads that. Because apparently, I only weighed 264 pounds. And normally, whenever they take it, it measures between 280 to 300, usually somewhere around 290, or 280. But, like, if it's really bad, it'll go up to 300. I myself do not actually know what my base weight underneath all the inflammation is because I have dealt with it for so long. But I went to the doctor and I didn't eat anything before I went because the appointment was really early, and I just didn't feel hungry, which probably means my thyroid went a different direction this morning. Like, it fluctuates really fast and it's really hard to, I don't even think my PCP understands what I'm telling her. Like, I think she hears me, and I think that there was a lot of information to process, and she processed a lot of this information very well, but whenever it comes to my autoimmune disorder, there is no specialist that just specializes in Hashimoto's, and even if there was, people that have to deal with both the high and the low are not the common. What? Those are the zebras. I am a zebra. That's the problem. So, like, I deal with all the symptoms of it going both ways, and I tried to explain to her, I would rather my thyroid just be taken out. Please do not try to medicate it if it's low, because then whenever it goes high, it's worse. I would rather still have some hair on my head. I've already lost most of it. And like, especially with women, there's a lot of pressure on us. Like, if I'm suddenly bald, first of all, I would not look good bald. So, I would look horrible. But second of all, our identities are tied in with this shit. Like, the way people look at us and the way we look at ourselves, like, hair is actually super important. Even if you're not vain. Like, all I do is I braid my hair or I stick it in a bun, and all I do is brush it. I don't even style it. I do what I need to do, and then how it comes out, it is what it is. I gave up trying to make it do special shit years ago. So, over a decade ago, I just don't have the energy to deal with it on top of everything else. You know, you have priorities, and mine has just never been my appearance. However, that doesn't mean that my hair is not still an issue. You can be a non-vain person who doesn't really care as much about appearance, to the point where they have the ability to make patterns for sewing. Like, they are advanced sewers, and they will not hem their freaking pants because they just don't see the point. Also, it feels better to walk on them. I'm weird. Also, I have not worn my pants in a while because the inflammation. I blew up like a pregnant lady. Sometimes I still do. I'm like midway at current. But like earlier, I had to confirm whenever I got home. Because, the nurse was really quick to get on that, well, maybe it was this or maybe it was that train. Because they would rather believe that it was a equipment failure, that it was just a fluke, than that this is actually just my body and what it does. Despite the fact that they couldn't get a BP on me, which is what happens whenever my body makes huge shifts in either direction. If I get like a sudden increase in inflammation where I had like a little break from that extreme, it happens. It's actually one of the reasons why I usually have them taken on the bottom part of my arm. Despite the fact that you can still, despite how they look, use a normal adult BP on my upper arm. However, sometimes you get a reading and sometimes you don't. It's just easier to only need to have it there like once, sometimes twice, but on the upper part of the arm, if it's taking twice on the lower part, you're not getting it on the upper part of my arm. The thing is, while most of it is centered in my center, not all the inflammation stays there. So, they couldn't read my blood pressure. So, very glad that I have a watch that does that for me. Now, granted, it also thinks that I'm asleep, light sleep, when I'm actually awake, like right now. I'm not wearing it, though, because I'm in the bathtub. But you see what I mean. Like, I'm awake. I am super tired. But, like, I've had, like, tabletop games on Discord going, like, till 11 o'clock at night, and this stupid watch will tell me that I went to bed at, like, 8 or 9. And it was just a light sleep. It wasn't. I was awake, and I remember everything. They can attest that, everyone started losing spoons, so to speak, because it was late. In general, we're all awake. And if I start falling asleep, I'm telling them that I'm falling asleep. It's more like, oh, that sort of thing. And that doesn't happen very often in game because I'm pretty careful about how I plan things. This might not work this week for Friday because we have a game on Friday because I have panda eyes. What time even is it? Yeah, it's 12:30. It's past midnight. I have panda eyes. And you know what? I would not have dark circles this dark if it wasn't for what that person did to me as a kid. Because my mom did not get dark circles this dark. And some of the discoloration here is just, it looks like that whenever it gets like that. For me, this is normal. No one's hit me. Well, not in the face. Recently. Plenty of people have hit me in the face in my life. All of them abusers. I just didn't want to have my words misconstrued one day. Nobody has hit me recently. Jean would never, and I'm rarely around anybody else besides Kiddo, who doesn't usually go for the face anyway. And if he does, it's usually the only part of me that can dodge. So, it has happened, but not the eyes. It usually ends up here, something here. I don't know. He broke his clock on my elbow the other day, so. But no, this is not bruising. This is just burn scarring, even if it's not all that visible otherwise. It's just, I have found that no matter how old it gets, because I got this when I was 7, it just reacts more. The skin there is just more color reactive. We do have dark circles that run in the family, but even whenever I was a kid, I didn't get panda eyes. Not until that happened. And that's also why I can't, pluck my eyebrows. I tried. The amount of times, I just ended up with, missing bits or took off too much because I was trying to cover up the fact that I had missing bits. So, I had 2 eyebrows that were, slightly different shapes. And I tried to fix it only to find, scar tissue in another part of the other one that was just smaller. It was a whole mess. I don't have the money to have a professional do it, and the only time my eyebrows have ever been on fleek is whenever I had a professional do it, and it's been exactly twice. I've been able to do that exactly twice in my entire life. So they're staying this way. They are bushy, and also whenever I was 10 or 11, one of my friends convinced me that I had a unibrow, so I tried to shave it. There was no unibrow. But the hairs are a little bit more in here now because of it. And you know what? Telling me in India that is a beauty standard. No. I don't live in India. Okay? I live in the USA. That is not a beauty standard here. And also, it really annoys me. It just helps if I don't look in a mirror. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it without making it worse at this point. I can't even, I tried so many things whenever I was younger, and so many mistakes were made. I mean, it's not like at some point I didn't at least try to make it look nice. I even had the boss at my first job even, told me that I would lose my job if I didn't. People judge you really harshly on your appearance as a woman. So, not doing anything about that actually hurts my chances for employment if they, see my face and shit. And if I already have a job, you know, someone can be like, you really need to take care of that. And it's not a suggestion. It's not something that they're allowed to order you to do at a job. I didn't know that at like 18, 19. But it's, yeah. Okay. And the loss of this job, because my grandmother was an evil bitch on that side, and talked to my boss and convinced her that I didn't actually need it because she was trying to keep my Social Security. And they were about to apparently drop me off of it because I had a job. She just wanted to keep on stealing the money. To destabilize my situation, because I actually had a savings that should have paid my rent for a while. She set me up, basically. She stole money out of my account by telling the bank that she was my payee, and therefore they couldn't deny her access to my money, which is really funny considering that that's not how that's supposed to work. I will never bank with Wells Fargo, like, ever again. Anything that has Wells Fargo smacked on it, or a subsidiary of Wells Fargo, or anything like that, I won't touch it. There are so many stories of abusive parents or family members or just guardians of kids that were in the system with stories like that, where it wasn't just I'm the payee, where they just didn't even have anything except that they are the parent, and it didn't matter that this person was an adult or they weren't even on the account, blah, blah, blah. Someone actually put my grandmother on the account because she did that, by the way. I was not there. I did not authorize it. And they did that. I will not go anywhere near them. There is a big ethics problem in Wells Fargo. And I don't just mean with the hidden fees. I mean with everything. And I will never forget that betrayal. I will never be able to trust them with my money. I ended up homeless. Not just because of that, but that is definitely one of the factors. I saved some of my tips out of the bank after I found out that happened. I mean, I had a little bit out. That was just supposed to be in case I needed groceries, though. It wasn't supposed to be for rent. And then suddenly, like, that was all I had. Because she emptied my account. And then she harassed me with crisis. I was forced to take medications, like physically by force, by people who had no right to do so. I was not court ordered after telling them that it made me suicidal. She was telling me every day to kill myself. She was, personally, calling me. She was harassing me at work, harassing me at home. I didn't live with her. I had my own apartment. It got to the point, though. A couple of kids I watched just destroyed my apartment. I just didn't have the energy to put it back together. Because I was trying so hard to avoid catastrophe while dealing with being forced into a situation where I was becoming actively suicidal because of things that were actively being done to me. Not naturally. And no one listened to me whenever it actually came down to it. Because yes, eventually it happened. The attempt happened. I was still 18. This entire, the next few months destabilized my entire life. I had lost my job. And then instead of, while I was in the midst of looking for a new one, despite the harassment, This happened. Of course, no more apartment. No more apartment. I was homeless. I ended up trafficked and a bunch of other stuff. My grandfather, the husband of the woman who did all these things, knew where I was because I managed to get away long enough to tell him. He knew where I was. He didn't intervene in any way until I was about to die. Not from the beatings or anything else, but from the fact that I am deathly allergic to, like, mold. I am very allergic to mold. And, I started turning yellow. I was having very clear health issues that were going to lead me to die. And this is after the hospital nearby let my appendix burst inside of me because the head doctor was a douchebag who saw that somebody had PTSD on paper and decided that seizures were pseudo-seizures. I was having seizures and foaming at the mouth because of my appendix. The only other instances in my adult life where I've had a seizure of any kind is due to medication. Anything that's happened twice, only one of those was, like, super serious, though. Like, in the hospital, temporary memory loss, and just a bunch of they didn't even scan for. The hospital that handled that one is no longer allowed to handle people with mental health diagnosis. That is how bad and how consistently bad they were with treating people with mental health diagnosis. It was really bad. They were not addressing the physical at all. If you had a mental health diagnosis, it was basically an excuse to bill insurance and not even look at you. A doctor after that took a look at me and was like, basically, I got the no brain damage, you're okay now, sort of stuff. I think some of them, whenever they scan the brain, they think that, like, oh, if I can't see what's wrong with your brain, then there's nothing wrong with you. But they don't always see it. Does that make sense? Because PTSD is, they don't necessarily always understand the brain enough. And it's basically an injury. And not everybody presents the same way. Kind of like how it got really super ignored whenever I was pregnant with Rowan. And I was telling them, so the tissue down there is burnt. Someone tried to cauterize me so I wouldn't be able to have kids. Basically, they tried to do a home ablation, but more than just the uterine lining. It was my grandmother. She was an evil? Yes. I actually got made fun of for months and told to, like, sit, like, differently in class because people could smell the infection. It was an infection. And it wasn't because I wasn't keeping it clean or anything, because I was. It was because I had burns. I mean, I could have died. I probably should have died. You see, my grandmother was all about that Munchausen's, if it got her attention. But if it was things that she had done, I wasn't getting anywhere near a doctor, let alone an ER. I was going to just die, and if I died, she was just going to say that I did it to myself. Yeah, you know, the thing that was literal torture that she did to me, like, physically did to me. And I have to say that because she used to say, you've done this to yourself. every time she did something to me, she would tell me, "You did this to yourself." Or, "You'll thank me when you're older. You left me no choice." It didn't matter what I'd actually done or not done. In this case, it would be not done. Sex is never not going to be painful for me because of it. All that can be done is it just can be made like a different balance of it. I don't enjoy pain, so that part is never okay for me. But I can reach a certain point where I can kind of ignore it. It just takes more work. Even before the radiation stuff, though, I had issues with it because, like, the damage. But it's not, like, visual. Here's the thing, though. At one point, I had 2nd degree and 3rd degree burns on my hand there. You can only even see, like, the difference in my skin because of the way I'm holding it. Because my hand is somewhat less obvious than my face. Go figure. I figure it's because there's, like, more blood and, like, a more shallow area in your face. So, my hand actually gets really visible on cold days, though. That's an interesting time. And the scar on this hand, it used to be, like, an inch off of it or more, and now it's not. So, like, I don't know, my scars very easily become less visible. So I have a theory with this. I think that this is why, despite documentation that I have had multiple concussions medically, every time somebody loses track of that even a little bit, suddenly they're like, "You must be lying, I don't see this on your brain scans." I think they're looking for something visually there. Kind of like how they were like, "Oh, you don't look defaced down here." So we fucked around and found out, and I ended up, both were emergency C-sections. Like, I did not dilate past 7 because I could not dilate past 7. You're supposed to dilate to 10 for reference.